Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Living to Learn. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope that what I share with you is going to be helpful, and I hope you'll be able to take away something from it that's going to be useful to you in your life or someone you know. If you want to share this video, feel free to do so. If you have a comment that you want to leave, go ahead and leave it. But what I really would ask from you is that if you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do so. That means a lot to me. So let's get started. Here's what I've been talking about throughout the week. We have been on this theme of self-worth. Something that I think is important to acknowledge and understand. And, I'm spending different days recording different segments on self-worth, right? We're trying to break it down as much as possible so that we understand what it is and why it's important. The first video I talked about loving ourselves unconditionally, right? Which is, I think, is the starting point, okay? Because if you don't love yourself, it's going to be really hard to not only attract that love elsewhere, but it's going to be hard to see, a need for you to do better or pursue certain things in life. I'll keep that real short and simple. Go check out my video from Monday if you want to know more about that. Tuesday's video was about, self-worth and what it affects. Okay, and we talked about how it affects two very important areas in our life: mental health and relationships. Okay, why is it important to understand what self-worth is and what does it affect if we're not getting it right versus if we are getting it right, or we are learning to accept ourselves and accept our self-worth. Today I want to talk about embracing that self-acceptance. Now, self-acceptance is like a branch off of self-worth, but self-acceptance is specifically when we accept everything about ourselves. Okay? And I'll explain a little bit more what that means, but just to give you like a surface level understanding, it's just acknowledging and accepting that you are who you are. Okay? Good and bad. Now, here's what that doesn't mean. Self-acceptance is not denial. That's a totally different subject. But before we can work on ourselves, before we can better ourselves, before we can understand, okay, what is worth my energy in changing, what isn't, or what isn't yet, we have to accept ourselves as we are, okay? This is a major role in building that self-worth, coming to a place of self-acceptance, right? Now, there's a couple of things that usually get in our way when it comes to self-acceptance, because, again, not accepting ourselves, where does that come from? Well, that stems again from a lot of things: life experience, how you were raised, how you grew up, what were the messages that you were told, what was the communication to you as a child or when you were very influential, what was said to you, how were you made to feel. There's a lot of different things. No two people are the same. Even if you grew up in the same household, you have two different experiences of the same parents, same family structure, whatever. So again, this is deep. And again, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about self-worth, that there's a value to us, and everyone should understand that. And the fact that we don't, it's not a good thing, but it's something that we can learn. At least that's what I think. So self-acceptance, what are some barriers? Well, one barrier to self-acceptance, I would say in general for a lot of us, and maybe especially, for people, at a certain age or certain age group, is societal expectations. So I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, it's funny because I don't even remember being like specifically told this, but somehow I understood this, like this narrative, or this, like I had this picture of life, and it was, you graduate high school at 18, you go to college. After college, you're supposed to be, you're supposed to have everything figured out, and for some people it was okay. Then you start a family. I think especially for a lot of the ladies, at least the ones that I was around growing up, it was like, well, at a certain age you gotta have kids, and you're gonna have a family and whatnot, and some of us went that route. Hopefully it was because that was the best choice for us and not because we felt like that's what was expected of us. But a lot of us didn't, myself included. And so I used to deal with a lot of stress. I used to deal with a lot of disgust, self-disgust. Just was disappointed with myself because things weren't clicking or things weren't going the way that I thought I was expected to go. All right, and so some of these societal expectations will keep us from accepting ourselves. Like, well, I'm not good enough, or all we're going to focus on what we didn't do right. And this is a collective experience. Like, I look back now and I'm like, oh, I had to go through it like that. I wouldn't have arrived to where I'm at today. I wouldn't understand things or see things the way that I do today if it wasn't for those experiences. So societal expectations, whether it's society at large or your circle, those things can be a barrier to us accepting ourselves. And the other thing is self-judgment, which again kind of goes hand in hand with what I just explained, but we tend to be super hard on ourselves. And this is where I'm at, because there's people out there, again, there's a school of thought out there that, there's this tough love and you've got to be tough, you got to be hard on yourself. I do think that there is some place for certain elements of that. There are definitely times where it's like, okay, I do need a wake-up call, I do need to snap out of it. But self-judgment is just this, we've made a decision about who we are and what we're not or who we're not. Okay. And a lot of times what that does is that keeps us from accepting ourselves, because we're so hard on the things that we don't get right, or we're so hard on the things that we see that's wrong with us. It makes it difficult for us to fully accept ourselves. Now, again, fully accepting yourself does not mean you let yourself off the hook with the things that need to change. It does not mean that you give yourself a pass on the areas in your life that you need to develop and that you need to get better at. What it does is it allows you to understand and lay everything out and say, okay, this is who I am as a person, and now I can start making those decisions. Because if you're too caught up in judging yourself, all you're harboring on is that negativity. You're not spending any energy trying to come up with a strategy, trying to develop a plan to make those things better. You see, we think that if we're super hard on ourselves, that's going to motivate us to do better. I'm a person that thinks that if we're super hard on ourselves, we're judging ourselves very harshly, that's a waste of energy. Again, you don't have to agree with me. That's just where I stand on it. So self-judgment and societal expectations, those are two, things that can keep us from embracing self-acceptance. Okay? Here's what we should do instead. We should be more compassionate towards ourselves. Okay? We should have more sympathy to the fact that, you know what? Some of these things are by choice. Like, there's things in my life that I invited. I made that choice. But then there's other things that are not. I'm still responsible for both. And for some of you, that might not be good news, but that's reality. At the end of the day, the only person that can do for me is me. Okay? But have some sympathy for yourself in the things that are hard for you to accept, that had nothing to do with you. They were just either thrown on you, or you inherited them, or just came from your family, or whatever upbringing you had, or whatever you've experienced. It's not all your fault, but it is all our responsibility. Okay? So I'm trying to make a distinction here. The other thing is we got to reframe that negative self-talk. I've talked about this in other videos for other things that I've given advice on. Negative self-talk. Let me give you an example of what reframing looks like. I had a job years ago, and I worked for a transportation company, and my assignment at one point was I was to show up to this distribution center, and I was basically just stacking pallets, wrapping these pallets, loading them onto a truck. The truck would take them. Now, this place was known throughout our entire company as the one place you did not want to work, because it was super fast-paced. The product was super heavy, and there was never enough of us. Like, it was a 5-man job. Sometimes there was only 3 of us or 2 of us. So every time you walked in there, the odds were against you. So at first, it was really difficult. But then one day I decided, you know what? I'm going to show up there anyway. So when I get there, I'm not going to think about anything but working as hard as I can, getting this stuff in this day over with, right? I reframed it. And what it did was it helped me be not only more efficient, not only did it make me a better worker, not only did it give me more favor at work, but it took a situation that had a negative, was negative, and it turned it into something that worked for me and in my favor. And that's all I'm saying. When it comes to negative self-talk, reframe that. You're beating yourself for a certain thing. Stop and say, hey, you know what? I acknowledge that this thing needs to change, that this is what's wrong with me. But I'm going to stop beating myself up. Instead, I'm going to take that energy and I'm going to start developing a plan. Let me put a plan of action together. Let me figure out what I'm going to do here. Okay? That's reframing. Just taking it and putting it in a different light. I'm telling you, it'll change so much. Just those two things. Self-compassion, reframing negative self-talk. Okay? So remember, those are the two things that we can do to cultivate self-acceptance. Also, beware of those common barriers. Societal expectations, self-judgment. Be aware. Okay? But remember, I'm saying it's important for us to embrace self-acceptance. It's important for us to accept who we are and just say, this is who I am. And then the things that need to change, the things we need to work on, we go from there. All right? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, thank you so much for watching. As a reminder, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. And two things, okay? So when you go in the description of this video, you're going to find my Instagram handle, which is @LiveToLearnCoaching. You can follow me there on Instagram. It's also a way for you to communicate with me. If you have any questions about my coaching, if you or someone you know has been considering hiring a life coach, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to answer any questions you may have. So send me a direct message on Instagram @LiveToLearnCoaching. Also in the description of this video, you're going to find 3 links under where it says donate here. Those are 3 opportunities for you to donate financially to this channel. Now, you don't have to, but it does go a long way since this is something that I do. It's a passion of mine, but it does take time. It does take preparation, and it does require consistency. And so those financial donations go a long way. They mean a lot. And for those of you that have already gifted me financially, I do appreciate your support. And for all the rest of you and everyone else, I appreciate your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll continue to do so. Have a great day.